Welcome everybody to another episode of Quantum Action, the podcast that's here to take you to infinity and beyond. Today we are talking to Troy Casey, who's in Scottsdale, Arizona, and Troy's got a remarkable story of how he went from being a model to being a super health expert and helping people not only with their health but with their freedom. And this is one of the main purposes of Quantum Action, is to help you with your freedom and gain more freedom. Troy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Fabrizio, for having me on.
So, Troy, you and I lived in Milan, probably the same time, but we never crossed paths. So, tell me a bit about how you got to Milan from America to be a model. I mean, tell us about that, and then what happened there, and your transformation as a result of your journey. Tell us your story. Off you go, Troy.
Yeah. So, I was in college, and I was going probably nowhere fast. I had a lot of mathematics I didn't do in high school, and so I was taking all those classes, and I'd been in undergrad for at least 3.5 years, and I had an opportunity to go to Milan and start modeling, and it sounded like a good adventure, and off I went. And I got to Milan, and it's a pretty cutthroat industry. And I used to have problems with my digestion for most of my life, actually. I had adult constipation, I had bloating, indigestion, acid reflux, etc. And I knew nothing about nutrition. And so I had just come out of college. And so I gave it the old college try. I went down to the American bookstore, bought some books on nutrition, and started reading.
Oh yeah, the
And
American Bookstore in Cairoli. I used to go there too.
yeah, that's exactly where it was. And so I bought a book on nutrition. I bought a couple books, and I started reading. And lo and behold, oh my God, processed food's not real food, and maybe some of your problems come from here. Cleaned up the diet, started shopping at farmers markets, which were new to me, but they were everywhere in Italy, the land of food, and started eating real food and got instant results. And got into fasting, herbs, internal purification, and that was the beginning of my journey 33 years ago. Came back to the United States, bought a juicer, did my first 10-day juice cleanse, looked in the mirror, became a spring chicken, and I looked 10 years younger. And I was like, wow, that's very effective. And so 33 years later, I've been practicing some form of fasting, intermittent fasting, juicing, juice cleansing, and herbalism. And I've gotten results over that over the years. I cleaned up my own gut and digestion after many years, and I was approaching 50, and I decided to use my aesthetics, which I'd used in my profession for many years. I've been in front of the camera for 33 years as well, and so I wrote the book hashtag Ripped at 50. I realized that six pack abs was very marketable, and I studied marketing, and so I came up with that hashtag, and I realized that 70% of the American people are obese or overweight, and so being in shape at 50 was marketable, and so I wrote that book. It had tremendous success all over the internet, and I had my YouTube channel going. I was working with an herbal company back in 2005, 2006. I've been doing expeditions in the Amazon, working with the shamans with the ayahuasca medicine. And I had some visions that I came out of the Amazon with. And one was the amalgamation of my on camera career. I'd been studying natural medicine for at least a decade. And I was doing stand-up comedy at the time, and I came out of the jungle with this exotic footage, and YouTube was a brand new reality, and so I started putting my footage up there, and the rest is kind of history. I have 17 years on social media and getting the messages out of holistic health, and so I teach basics, which is what the all martial arts masters do. Punch, block, kick, hydration, nutrition, sleep, movement, etc. Basic fundamental principles that are required for every human psychologically, physiologically, and biologically. And so people are coming back to nature now and really waking up, seeing that the systems no longer support them and that nature has always had answers for us.
Yeah, I mean and I think lockdowns have woken a lot of people up to, really looking after themselves from the physical side, from what you eat to, working out and moving your body. And a lot of people, they get to 50. I mean, I'm 53. I mean, I go to the gym, gym, the health club 5, 6 times a week, whether I play tennis or yoga or work out or swim. But I make sure I move my body every 6 days a week, basically, because I see, it's so important. You don't want to get to 70, 80 years old with a walking stick or in a wheelchair or anything like that. I do believe that, man was designed to live probably over 100. 120 is the number that a lot of people are putting out there right now. But I mean, a lot of it, as you say, is to do with what you eat. Tell us a bit about the Amazon rainforest and the herbs in the rainforest, because you made some interesting discoveries when you were down there, and that's something that not many people know about. So shed us some light on the Amazon River and the importance of preserving that forest.
Yeah, so I worked with an herbal company from 2005 to 2012, and we were the largest importers of rainforest botanicals on the planet. And lo and behold, they're the most researched plants on the planet. But the plant knowledge is not out there because 42% of all drugs and 25% of all cancer drugs get their impetus from rainforest plants. And so the cure for AIDS and cancer is down there. We've known that for a very long time. And so the pharmaceutical companies have gone down there and taken the folklore, extracted the medicines, isolated and standardized either a nutrient or a terpene or one of these phytochemicals, and made drugs out of them. And if you know anything about herbology or plants, the plants have the natural chemistry. So if there is something like arsenic or an alkaloid that helps with apoptosis or any kind of proper cellular replication, then the pharmaceutical companies will isolate those ingredients. And sometimes these ingredients or these elements um, are very destructive at the cellular level. But with the plants, they have all the cofactors that help them balance that toxicity. But if you're
So what you're
isolating and
saying is don't
standardized,
don't extract the ingredient from the plant, eat the whole plant.
correct. And so, and lo and behold, when these plants are utilized, they purge the liver, they increase um, macrophage phagocytosis, really stimulates the immune system. They're natural elements um, um, that benefit the human body. And when we take them in their whole food form, either in a tea, an extraction, a tincture, then they have much more balance in them. And natural medicine is not the same as allopathic. This problem, this solution, or treat this symptomology with this drug and your problems will go away. Well, we all know what side effects are, and most people are not on one drug that's going to cure everything. They're on 15 drugs to balance out all this toxicity and dysfunction. And so I take people back to nature and use food as medicine. As the father of modern day medicine said, Hippocrates, let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. But we've gotten away from herbalism because if you know anything about textiles, prohibition, etc., when industry wants to manipulate or control, they'll vilify one thing and or illegalize it, and like they did with prohibition. Henry Ford wanted to run was it corn-based, alcohol-based cars for the fuel, and of course they created prohibition and they outlawed alcohol altogether. And so the same thing happened with marijuana because it was outperforming. Hemp outperforms the textiles. So they vilified marijuana completely. Dow, DuPont, these major industrial companies, 1937, they created reefer madness propaganda campaign. Basically, if you smoke a joint, you're going to go crazy. And anything that had to do with the actual marijuana plant. And lo and behold, almost 100 years later, we still know that hemp outperforms plastics. And so the Declaration of Independence was written on hemp, our first American flags. And hemp is industrial. It's almost indestructible. It's much stronger than cotton. And so, but we've gotten away from this because it's not in the oil-based industry, plastics, um,
Well, it's interesting you say this,
economy.
Troy, because about a month ago, I had an interesting guest on the show here, and those of you that haven't watched the show about Nikola Tesla, click on that one because he's discovered some very interesting things just recently in his second book about Nikola Tesla and the fact that he could have had everybody running on electric cars and everybody having free electricity in their homes, but no, they're shutting down.
Harmonic harmonic electricity, not based on the 60 megahertz cycle, which is discordant to the human energy field.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you start to, my journey into health went in parallel with my journey as a pilot. When one day I was flying with this captain, I was still a first officer at the time, and he was reading a book about 9/11, and he said to me, "It didn't go as they tell you it went. You need to read this book." And he was reading it in French. So I got home that day. I went on Amazon, found the English version, ordered it, and it opened my mind. And while I was doing that research, my wife and I, because my wife's a herbalist, she was having her journey, and I was kind of following her because I didn't want her to cook food in one way and another way for me and whatever. And suddenly we discovered that the root of the evil of these two situations were the same people. The same people were behind it, and it's all about these people making money. It's not about doing good for mankind. And this is the thing. I mean, our food today is got all these pesticides in it and whatnot, and as you said, the pharmaceutical companies go down to the rainforest and they extract ingredients from the plants, when if you just eat the camel fruit, which is very rich in vitamin C, and there's other plants down there that I mean, what kind of plants have really resonated with you the most from the rainforest? Can you share some of these plants that you really like and benefited from? I like camel, for example. That's one of the famous ones.
Yeah, Camel Camo is great, and that was a even a more recent discovery. Highest concentrated source of vitamin C, but more importantly, not just vitamin C, all the riboflavin and the other cofactors necessary for the reuptake of the vitamin C. And there's two Nobel laureates on vitamin C, Georgi in 1937 and Linus Pauling in the 70s. And Linus Pauling was into megadosing, but towards the end of his life, he said it's not about the megadosing. It's about the whole food plant and getting the vitamin C into the body. And so you can do more with the natural food. And so vitamin C is water soluble, so it's very important. And most of the vitamin C on the market today is coming from GMO corn. Even if you're buying it in Whole Foods, for example, ascorbic acid is coming from GMO corn for the most part. And so that's one plant. And then Unyagato was discovered about 30 years ago. It increases the immune function. It also cleans out the liver. And so it's an excellent plant to alkalize the blood, clean the blood. And, cat's claw, world renowned. Sangre de Drago, dragon's blood, is a resin that comes out of a tree down there. It's the highest antioxidant on the planet. It's 90% proanthocyanidins, and so which just means red purple or red blue, and the the antioxidant count is very high. And Shaman Pharmaceuticals spent $89 million trying to make it into an antiviral herpes drug, and the research was so profound. The more they isolated the one alkaloid in it, the more deadly it became. So they had to scrap all the research. And so the research is great for herbalism, but not good for making a drug. And so those are just three plants right there. And those are the strongest, highest concentrated source of vitamin C, highest concentrated source of antioxidants, and the number one immune stimulant, which is unitagato, or cat's claw. And so very profound plants. We were working with about the top 40 uh, uh, shamanic herbs down there. And what happened with me when I started putting these in my body, and I was meditating a lot at the time, I was very in tune with my body. And so it took my energy level and my cognitive function to a whole nother level. So I had a huge awakening just utilizing these plants. And then when I studied the energetics behind it, the biophotonic light, which is energy from the sun, can be measured in biophotons, was through the Richter scale. In fact, when they measured it, they had to recalibrate the machines to measure the biophotonic light because there was so much light coming through these plants. And I experienced that firsthand. And and it makes sense because the Amazon has virgin soil. It's got very high concentrated sources of sunlight, and it's stored in these plants with millions of years of ecological development, fighting at the bottom of the rainforest floor, fighting off mold, funguses, parasites, other plants that can eat it. So anything that survived is the strongest of strongest plants on the planet.
Yeah. Then I know recently you've got into breath work and breathing and the importance of breathing. Tell us a bit about. So we've covered the herbs and the rainforest. Let's talk about breathing now. And
So
your how did you come into the whole breathing thing, and what kind of things have you learned, and what things do you practice and teach?
yeah, so breath or oxygen is the first form of nutrition in my book next to the sun. And so, and we breathe all day, every day. And so I looked into my own breathing mechanics and shallow breathing. I was through a divorce in 2017, 2016. I had a lot of trouble with my relationship. And so a friend of mine taught me the breath work, and I noticed that it instantly cleared my head and was able to ground
So
me. I
what were
was
you breathing?
sleeping
You're
on,
breathing from here. You're breathing from here, not from down here.
yep, chest, neck,
Yeah,
mouth breathing.
yeah. Because
And so,
when you're in distress emotionally, you tend to put it here. Yeah, this
well,
area.
and when fighters are in the boxing ring as well, when they get gassed out, they start breathing through their mouth. And that activates the autonomic nervous system that puts us in a fight or flight. Elevated cortisol creates inflammation in the body. Inflammation in the body creates disease, and disease kills dreams. And so I went back to the root and started working on my own breathing mechanics, breathing into my belly. I teach Qigong, and I have a Qigong move that opens up the diaphragm. And so I did that for a couple of years, refocusing, reprogramming my neurology so that I'm breathing from my belly, from my diaphragm, whether I'm sleeping, resting, stressed, etc. And so between the dramatic yoga breath, the breath of fire, and stuff like that, uh, also to the qigong, to harmonizing the body movements with the breath, because your spine should flex when it breathes. Your body should pump itself, and if we're breathing from our chest and our neck, a lot of stress is going to uh, um, reside in our neck and our mouth. It's going to elevate cortisol, and chronic elevated cortisol creates all sorts of problems, which we see in today's world. That's why I put the 7 factors of stress and the breathing mechanics in my book, Ripped at 50. And so go back to the fundamentals, the first form of nutrition. So let's optimize the breathing mechanics.
Yeah, I also see you're into the Wim Hof method and the cold baths and cold showers. Tell us a bit about that and how that really does get your whole system going, and what that does for you.
Well, any kind of hormesis, which is a stress stimulus that helps the body grow. Too much stress is going to break the body down, but just enough is going to make the body stronger or more resilient, especially the nervous system. And our autonomic nervous system is what pumps our heart. It's what breathes us. And the breath is the only mechanism inside the autonomic nervous system which puts you in control. And so um, I I saw, like many people, saw Wim Hof's ice baths and other viral activity. And what he gave me was poetic license to not only jump in an ice bath and train my own nervous system, but also he corroborated some of the work I was doing on yogic breathing and breath work. And so it was just a perfect storm. And me, I was motivated not from studying from someone else, but going through my own pain and dysfunction, and going through a divorce, sleeping on my own couch, waking up, almost 50 years old, going, oh my God, this is my life and I'm facing divorce, thinking things are over, right? And worrying about that and having anxiety. And the first thing that I would do in the morning, I would wake up and I'd have those anxious feelings like, what am I going to do? And I would just start breathing. I would do 90 breaths, 3 rounds of 30, and I would inhale, hold, and wait till the reflex kicked in. And as soon as I did 90 breaths, my head was clear. I jump in a cold shower. My body was refreshed. My mind was clear. And then I could get to functioning inside my dysfunctional relationship.
What about water? Now, you talk a lot about water and the water that we drink. What's wrong with the water coming out of the tap? What's wrong with the water you buy at the store? And what can you do to get healthy water?
Well, first and foremost, the water coming out of the tap has fluoride in it and chlorine. And these are, chlorine's a great disinfectant, so we don't have, bacteria in our water that we're drinking, but it's not good for consumption long term because it kills off the gut microbiome. And chlorine affects us in many different ways, as well as the fluoride. And so it calcifies our pineal gland. Our pineal gland secretes hormones, and when that solidifies, we have less function. It also represents our inner vision, right? Our all-knowing intuition that's inside of us. And um, so drinking pure water is important. So you want something that's pure. Um, and one of the best ways inside the cities is reverse osmosis. But reverse osmosis just means that the water is purified. Now, water normally has a living structure and its surface tension is lowered so it can absorb into the cells. And so I recommend people clean their water, get the best, purest source, and then treat their water, structure their water many different ways. So you can use minerals.
Yeah, I have the same machine you have, the spiralizer machine.
Yeah, the vitalizer, it spins
Vitalizer,
it
yeah, the vitalizer, yeah. Yeah, I have one of
in
those. I have reverse osmosis, and then I pour it into the vitalizer, yeah.
the vitalizer, which is an energetic, so it aerates the water, it oxygenates the water, and as well as it goes over a coral calcium charge, so it has those minerals like water would be going through the earth, right, spinning. And so I also have a molecular hydrogen machine. This is one of the elements that is mostly studied, and I'm not here to tell you about all this technology. Find out what works best for you. A pinch of real salt or Celtic sea salt will begin to structure your water and give it more vibrancy just from that alone. So look into water quality for sure. Drinking it out of plastics. People know about xenoestrogens. I believe that men are being chemically castrated. We can look into fertility statistics for that as well. And so xenoestrogens are plastics. They act as um, hormone disruptors inside of our body. And so you want to wean yourself off of plastics, especially thin plastics, which is where water bottles come from most of the time. And so the most important thing is to be cognizant about your water. Source your water from the purest source that you can. You can buy glass bottled water and go on findaspring.com and find a local spring. Water is abundant and it comes out of the earth. And so if you can source a good well or spring, get your water directly from there and or treat it from there, structure it from there.
Or
But
even better, have
usually,
your own
right,
well. Buy a piece of land and have your own well. Yeah.
I mean that is the highest form of sourcing your water for sure. But be mindful of it. None of this is a license to be neurotic. We all live in the modern world, and so you have to do the give and take and see what you can source. But pay attention to your water because your brain is about 90% water, your body's about 70% water. So it's very important the interstitial fluids that you have in the body. And because of that, movement is medicine. So a stagnant body of water turns into a cesspool. So you want to make sure that you're moving your body each and every day. The pump of the human body is the diaphragm, the pelvic floor, and the transverse abdominis. So it's very important to pump the body on a daily basis. Walking is the best exercise, according to me.
Now, what about food? Now, I know you've been on a bit of a journey with food. You went vegan for a while. and now you eat slightly different. Um, what? Tell us a bit about your journey with food, and what do you eat and not eat on a daily basis?
So I learned a lot about food living in Italy, shopping at the farmer's market, fresh food, real food, whole foods, making your own food, food prep, eating from home. You know, I had black mold exposure and autoimmune from 2010 to 2013. I was exposed to black mold, and my body broke down, and I had immense amounts of brain fog. I had
You
neurological
say that,
issues.
Troy, and those of you that are listening, and especially here in England, where it rains a lot, it's raining right now. There's a lot of mold in the houses, but sometimes you can't even tell you've got mold in your house. I mean, my wife had a dear friend of hers that was having all sorts of problems going to hospital and this and that, and then my wife turned around and said, "It's the mold. You need to move house." This lady moved house, and she immediately became healthy. So mold is a really, and I believe there's a big documentary out there about the whole mold thing as well. It is something that's kind of hidden in people's homes, and it's very dangerous as you
Very
experience yourself.
dangerous.
Yeah,
There's multiple movies. So Dave Asprey did a book called Moldy. I think you can find it on the internet for free. Shemaine Nugent, the wife of Ted Nugent, a friend of the family, she also has a documentary coming out, I believe. And so, they had the Rock and Roll Mansion, and that got moldy. I do believe that was in Florida, and so it's dangerous. So, what were we on? We were on
yeah. Talking
food,
about
right?
you got exposed
So,
to black mold. Yeah,
yeah.
and then we're gonna
So
go on to the food. Yeah.
so I fine tuned. So first of all, it was the discovery of the mold, and then once I got clear on that, um, so because we were on nutrition, you asked me about the nutrition. So oh, this is what it was. So I was talking about preparing the food, eating at home. So I had brain fog, severe brain fog. This is about 2013, and one of my businesses took a nosedive, and so I would, my wife was like, make more money. I had challenges in my relationship with that, and I was doing everything I could, but my brain wasn't working, and I was on the internet, and lo and behold, ambient Wi-Fi affects mold and mold spores by 600%. And so there I was on my laptop trying to make money, living in a black mold house. My brain wasn't working, and I was reading a paper on Psychology Today, and it said 9 out of 10, 9 out of their top 10 psychological improvements list could be met at sharing an organic, nutritious meal with friends. And so, eating at home, preparing food, eating organic is super important. You're right. I found my way first into vegetarian and vegan literature, started applying that whole foods from commercial food. Obviously, it was better. Long term, it didn't work for me hormonally. I was traveling a lot, and so it didn't work for me. So where where I sit right now is, as an individual, you have to go on an elimination diet to figure out what's not working for you. So commercialized, pasteurized dairy, gluten was a big piece for me. When I weeded that out of my diet, most of the bloating and indigestion went away. Um, and so just constantly fine tuning and tweaking. My body and brain works best when I fast. My cognitive function is much higher then. So I fast most of the day, and then I have a
When you
macro
say
meal.
fast, that doesn't mean fast doesn't mean you don't eat or drink anything. It means you don't eat, but you do drink.
Yeah, I call it calorie restricted fasting. So if you do a water fast or a dry fast, that's going to put you into autophagy and ketosis much faster. Calorie restricted, you'll still get there. It just takes a little bit longer. And I like vitamin, mineral, and enzymes in my body, so I've been juicing for 33 years and taking herbs. So I will take dried herbs and juice. These are pre-digested materials that go through my body.
So you wake up in the morning. What do you drink to start with. Just talk us through your day as far as what food you eat, whether in liquid form or actual food.
Yeah, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I brush my teeth, get the bacteria out of my mouth, and then I hydrate. So I go
Okay.
into my
Water.
kitchen.
Is that water or water with lemon? I do water with lemon, for example.
Water with lemon, water with apple cider vinegar, water with apple cider vinegar and baking soda. It's called a volcano. That's going to flush the kidneys and the liver. If I don't have those materials on me because I didn't go to the supermarket or something, uh, then I do ionic minerals, and I do fulvic zeolite, so minerals and or sea salt I'll put in there. And I also do iodine, which neutralizes the halogens, the chlorine and the fluoride. It neutralizes. So I'll do 3 drops of iodine first thing in the morning, some fulvic zeolites, and some ionic minerals, and then I usually structure my water. I'll have some um, molecular hydrogen water, and so I flush my body as much as possible. And that's when I take all my herbal supplements. So anything that I take in supplement form is dried herbs or superfoods, which is in a whole food raw food presentation, has all the enzymes, vitamins, and minerals in place. And so I just hydrate during the morning time, and then I usually go to the gym fasted. And then when I come home, I'll have a fresh coconut water, or I'll have a fresh squeeze green juice or a beet juice, anything to continuously flush out my body. I wait until my blood sugar is ready to eat, like I'm really starving. Um, and then I can
What would you eat at like
basically,
3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Is that when you would eat the first time?
yeah, I'll usually have a snack around that time, and then I'll eat my macro meal around 5, 6, 7, and then I go to bed pretty early as well because I wake up early, and so that's basically it. I eat all organic food. The money that I spend in the store is with organic farmers.
Do you eat much meat and fish, or no?
Mainly, I have a keto, paleo kind of carnivore diet. A lot of vegetation makes my tummy upset, and so I really go on feeling and functionality, and so not on theory. It's got to work, and then I use the 80-20 Pareto principle. If I'm out and I don't have access to the best of the best, I'll either fast or I'll eat whatever is going to stabilize my blood sugar, because hormones are very important, stress factors are very important. I will eat whatever's going to stabilize my blood sugar, and then trust that my body will detox off whatever is not, primo or optimal.
So
And
Troy,
so
I mean,
I,
I've been vegan for 25 years now, and it works for me, but I understand it doesn't work for everybody. And this is what you were saying. It works for some people, and for some people it doesn't. But I guess it also depends on what you eat. I mean, I've met a lot of vegetarians that are and vegans that are very unhealthy because they're eating all the veggie burgers. And if you look at the ingredients of the veggie burgers, it's full of processed food.
and GMOs
Yeah, and
and
GMO.
glyphosate
You might as
and
well eat a normal burger.
pesticides.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's been a one size fits all kind of, oh, the vegan diet will work for everyone. Well, okay, vegan just means no animal products. And so that doesn't mean that all the food itself, whether it's processed, this, that, or the other thing, whether it's healthy or it actually digests, especially when it comes to gluten, which is sprayed with glyphosate, which is oats,
I
barley,
found
wheat.
gluten being a problem for me. If you eat a lot of pasta or bread, you tend to get that belly, especially when you hit 50. And I find that I'm not 100% gluten free, but I'm trying to get to 100% gluten free. I mean, today I had some pasta, but it was gluten free pasta. Um, and but I do see a lot of guys, and even me. I used to have a bit of a belly. I mean, I was probably 10 kilos overweight, and most of it was concentrated in the belly area. When I went on the machine in the gym, they told me, said, yeah, your excess weight is all in the belly. We need to get rid of that. So it's a combination of exercise and a combination of food. So, and I thought to myself, yeah, I know it's the gluten. It's the gluten I need to get rid of, because that's what causes. And of course, you need to exercise correctly as well.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is the guy that wrote Wheat Belly, he can't replicate his data. So he believes it's the glyphosate, not the wheat. And I have clients that go to Italy for vacation, and 2 weeks to a month they stay there eating pizza, ice cream, pasta, and they lose weight, right? So it's the quality of the food. And so gluten is a trigger. I've heard it say that the villi inside your stomach were all born like shag carpet, but uh, between the glyphosate and or the gluten, the gut gets hammered. The gut lining gets hammered to where that shag carpet turns into a Berber. Once it's down to like a Berber carpet, that is celiac disease. Everything else is metabolic dysfunction in between. We just had reports come out in the United States of America. 9 out of 10 people are metabolically dysfunctional. So look no further than the pesticides, the herbicides, the industrialization of food. And we also used to prepare our greens. We used to sprout them, and we used to cook them and use sourdough starter, etc., to prepare these. Instead, we're growing them industrially, we're processing them industrially, growing them industrial, storing them in silos. We were talking about mold before. Grains can create mold very easily. Mold has mycotoxins. Mycotoxins are deadly. If you sell mycotoxin tainted grain, you can't sell them to humans. But guess what? You can sell them to farms and farm animals. That's legal. And if you're feeding animals tainted grain, then that's going to make the animals sick. And then if people are eating the sick animals, then lo and behold, what we have is a populace of fat, sick, and nearly dead people eating real food. Most people think they eat healthy. I eat healthy, and so everything is about the uber highest quality, that you can source. Otherwise, it will show up in the body. And again, the guy that wrote the book Wheat Belly, and a thumbnail size of gluten will affect the thyroid up to 4 months. So when I pull my clients off of gluten, they say, "Oh, I just want my croissant on Sunday." I tell them that and ask them to rethink that, because a small piece can affect your body for a long time, and you're not going to know it until you do an elimination diet for at least 30 to 60 days and then reintroduce it. If you get a food hangover from eating a sandwich with bread on it, then lo and behold, there is your death sentence, and you can either accept it or abort it.
So it's getting to know your body and what works for you. That's really, really important. But as you said, you need to detox first. So I should imagine that you've got clients that you help with weight loss scattered all over the world. Because these days with technology, you don't necessarily have to be physically with a person to help them to lose weight. Do you coach people also through technology as well?
Yes, and that's how I help most of my people. I've helped over 25,000 people start eating cleaner, greener, organic. I work with a superfood company. We're distributed in the UK, the EU, and all over North America, Canada, and the US. And so I've helped over 25,000 people. My average client loses 25 pounds in the first 30 days, anabolically and organically. And so, because there's a lot of products out there on the market, a lot of supplements, and most of it is garbage. 95% of what's on the market is garbage. Only 4 to 6% of what's produced on the market is organic. And so I work with a company that's been around for 30 years. We've been growing organic superfoods on volcanic ash beds in Utah, and we've got relationships with farmers for the past 30 years. And so our supply chain is rock solid. We've been helping people for a very long time, and we're doing very good in business. And again, I help people within 30 days get a whole new lease on life. And so it's tremendous success. And I've been juicing for 33 years. So, I'm a perfect test monkey that putting pre-digested nutrition into the body works. Whatever the body can absorb. Everyone's got theories out on the internet, but you got to test those theories inside your own laboratory. Just because it works for someone else doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot will depend on where you live, what's available. I mean, if you live in a cold climate, if you live at the equator, you know, the environment. I mean, I lived in the Middle East for 2.5 years, and obviously out there it was very hot. It was also very dry, and so you eat in a certain way. But people out there were eating tons and tons of meat. But you would see a 60-year-old out there would look like an 85-year-old here in Europe because they're eating all this meat and they're eating meat like 3, 4 times a day at 50 degrees Celsius. I mean, it's crazy. That's really, really bad when, fruit and vegetables were available because they were growing in a certain part of Oman where we lived. And there's a lot of stuff coming in from India every day in Sri Lanka. So, you could, but yeah, it depends where you live as well.
Well, you bring up a very good point. The heat and the viscosity of your blood and the viscosity of the water that is inside the nutrition. So, for example, in the north, when we start going into fall, what are our vegetables? Well, they're not leafy greens and celery. It starts going into root vegetables, right? And squashes, more dense. And our rutabagas, which is even more dense, and turnips and stuff like that, underground, what can grow, what's available to grow. And then, of course, in the tropical climates, we do have those fruits. And so we've just gotten so far away because of the industrialization, and watermelon's available in Iceland, year round now. But these aren't the natural foods from our natural environments. So people really have to do a lot of discovery on not necessarily what's available, but what works and what's available for you in the moment.
So, Troy, do you cook a lot of your food, or do you tend to eat most of it raw?
Well, all my vegetable juices, superfoods, and herbs I eat raw. So my micronutrition I eat raw. Um, and of course, any fruit and veg that I eat a lot of kimchi for the most part. And I'll eat some raw liver and some raw organs. Uh, but for the most part, most everything else I'll cook. And again, I eat basically one macro meal a day. And I'm not exporting this. I'm not saying, "Hey, I'm healthy. You need to get on this diet." You need to figure out what is the best quality food you can source in the area that you're in, and make sure that that food doesn't give you gas, bloating, indigestion, constipation, etc. And then if you start to find that it works and it has success, then stick with that and start doing variations of that. I recommend people get on a rotational diet. In the body, we're highly adaptable. So try new things and figure out what works for you, when, where, and how.
Yeah, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And of course, on the supplement side, make sure that you're taking supplements that have got plants in them and not extracts. As Dr. Schultz, Dr. Schultz says, if you can't understand the label, don't take it.
That's right.
You need to be able to understand what the ingredients are. If it's some long strange name, then no, you don't want that.
You got to pull out a dictionary for it. No, and Dr. Schultz is one of my herbal teachers. He's phenomenal, and his products are phenomenal. I have them in my bathroom.
Yeah, no, he's great. I mean, he saved my wife's life when she had cancer. It was through his whole detox system that she got rid of it. She had an ovarian cyst which was 12 centimeters, and the
Oof.
doctor wanted to operate on her immediately, within 48 hours, and she decided she was going to find a different solution. And so we started taking, whole herbal supplements as well as, going on a raw food diet and that, and doing yoga and breathing and that. And her cyst went from 12 centimeters to 6 in 3 weeks. And then after 3 months, it disappeared completely, to the extent where this doctor, who was the number one gynecologist in Europe, when he found out through my wife's sister that she was still alive, he was like, I want to see her for free. Bring her in. So we flew out to Como in Italy to see this guy. And, and I thought he was going to ask what we had done. And you know what he did? He turned around and said, well, sometimes the body just cures itself. I thought, that's not a very scientific explanation from a doctor who's supposed to be a scientist. Don't you want to know what we did? We actually had a system that we did to get rid of this thing. Because with women, on the ovarian, on the ovaries, a twisted cyst, which is what my wife was starting to have, was turning into cancer. And you really need to tackle that head on to get rid of it. And the interesting thing is that when this happened, we'd only had 3 kids at the time. My wife was told that she probably wouldn't have any more children. And then a few months later, she was pregnant, and we had my daughter, who was very healthy. And then on my daughter's thing, this is an interesting one. She had a mirror fall on her hand, and it slashed a tendon on her hand. And the doctors wanted to operate, but we decided not to. So my wife put a special herbal concoction on her hand, and within, I think it was about a couple of months, the tendon regrew. And now she's 14 and she's got only a little tiny scar, but her hand is fully functional. If she'd been operated, they guaranteed she was going to have 80% functionality. And now she's big into horse riding, and she jumps with the horses. She does show jumping. And if she had gone down the operation route, she wouldn't have been able to do horse riding or show jumping. And she's very talented arena. So interesting. But again, as you were saying, the herbal medicine is God's medicine, and it's been out there for centuries. I think sometimes, even when you read the Bible, you see certain people in the Bible lived a long time, and certain people were a lot more alert because they ate in a certain way, and and so, and there's other civilizations that have lived on this planet that lived long and healthy lives, but a lot of even Chinese medicine has been suppressed. The information has been suppressed.
I think there's a lot of confusion, Fabrizio, because we're trying in our mind, and a lot of people come through my portal trying to use natural medicine as an allopathic element. Hey, I got cancer. What do you have for this? Well, first of all, I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't treat, mitigate, or cure. Even, that's out of my league. But if you want to get healthy, we can go over here and talk about the basic fundamental elements that the body needs. And then we can talk about herbs that help support the body's system so the body automatically heals itself. It's a completely different model, it's a holistic model.
And you know what Dr. Schultz is like? If you phone him up and say, I've got cancer, he says, okay, this is what you need to do. First of all, you need to stop ingesting all the rubbish. You got to move your body. Then you got to teach it. And if you don't approach it holistically, you can't take a herb and cure that. Like, you go to the doctor, he'll give you a pill, but the holistic doctor won't give you a pill. The holistic doctor will tell you need to change your lifestyle.
Let's get you pooping first.
Yeah, yes, which a lot of people don't do.
I'm curious, Fabrizio, how did you get his incurable program in the UK? Because I'm not aware that those herbs are available there. I know you can get the
No, no.
superfood.
Back then you could bring them in. Back then you could bring them in. Yeah, yeah. Then what happened with the whole EU thing? They decided that you couldn't bring them in, and now we've done the Brexit thing. You can bring them in again.
Oh,
Yeah.
good old
So
commerce.
yeah, it's just the whole thing, and now we're going to go into a little bit of a controversial subject, and you and I have to be careful what words we use here. We've been in this, we've had this lockdown situation caused by this virus, as they have officially told us was out there, and a lot of people have gone and had this thing into their arms, but that's been causing lots of complications. So those that are listening that are a bit concerned about, now we're going into flu season, being healthy, what would you recommend, and what's your read on all this? And of course, let's just be careful what words we use. We don't want to be censored here. Um, Over to you.
Well, let's go to the penultimate. Let's never forget that we are divine emanations of the Creator. We're all knowing, self healing children of God, right? If you cut yourself, right, or as your daughter's explanation, she severed a tendon, the body will heal itself. You get a cold, you get a big infection, or any kind of issue, the body will heal itself. You give it the proper rest, proper nutrition, the proper environment. And so let's always go back to that. And so, you know, look at the commercial industrial world that we've been born into. Um, I don't like to completely vilify the systems. I like it says it in the Vedic scriptures. This is the big cosmic joke. It's God playing God, if you will. And so uh, we have uh, gone to sleep on ourselves. We have tricked ourselves. And I believe it is a catalyst for us to wake up. We all know what the truth is inside of us. And so, and if you really want to understand, uh, I would study germ theory versus terrain theory. Who funded Louis Pasteur? What Louis Pasteur said on his deathbed, and who Anton Beauchamp was. and study in that framework if you really want to understand the psychological operation that we are under. And divide and conquer is part of that as well. Hitler's right hand man was Goebbels. And so Goebbels ran the propaganda leg of the Third Reich. And so this is the battlefield of the human mind. I call it a spiritual battle. You could
I
call it,
agree.
good
Between
against
it's good and
evil.
evil, yeah. It's a war, and that's what I tell people. I mean, ultimately, this is a battle between good and evil, and this is the difference between good and evil. Good creates, evil destroys. Evil puts fear in people, while good brings peace to people's hearts. And so, whenever you're looking at something, you need to make a decision, whether it's a food, whether you anything you're going to ingest in your body or whatever. Is the situation that you're being put into, are you doing this motivated by fear, or are you doing it motivated by peace and love and that? And if you're doing this because of fear, it's coming from the other guy, not from God. And that's what, and when I say this to people, they go, oh, I never thought of it that way. Oh, now you're thinking. That's good. Because most people don't think.
Well, exactly. And that's my job, is to instigate thought, right? Whether you like it or not, I'm going to stimulate thought. And and ultimately, we understand, and this is philosophy, really. We understand that we live in a dualistic paradox. You can't have joy without pain, up, down, inhalation, exhalation, masculine, feminine, catabolic, anabolic. There's two forces that are constantly guiding us. And so I like to couch it, I like to go above everything. And there is no bad or good per se. But I'll tell you one thing, the bad will stimulate you into your own awakening to align with the good, and then find the balance, or as the ancient sages have all said, walk the middle path, walk the razor's edge, stay in balance so you know where your limitations are. We don't want to be Pollyanna and be naive completely, and at the same time we don't want to go towards absolute sinister, right? And so we stay balanced between the two, and oftentimes the dark will wake us up into the light. And so find that balance in between, and know that there's two forces guiding us, right? And these are deep philosophical thoughts, but as Socrates said, an unexamined life is not a life worth living.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, from a health perspective, it's all about the health status of our immune systems. Our immune systems needs to be functioning, and a lot of this stuff that people are ingesting in their bodies these days actually go and destroy the immune system or make the immune system weaker. I mean, if you're in bed for 10 days with the flu, then you've probably got a weak immune system. So you need to do something about it. And as you said, let's start with your health. What are you eating? What are you not eating? What quality is the food that you're eating? What quality is the water? How are you breathing? Are you moving your body? I mean, most people don't do these things. I mean, I don't think someone becomes obese overnight.
There's lifestyle issues, and that's all coming from behavioral issues, which is coming from the thinking issues. And again, this is the battlefield of the human mind. We're dealing with propaganda, and everyone's willing to abdicate their responsibility to someone who's wearing a white coat. And that person in the white coat does not have your long-term survival in interest in their mind. They have short-term interest
Or even the
in
politicians. I mean, a
increasing
lot, a
their
lot of the
bank account.
politicians that we have these days. I mean, here in England, for example, we just had the change of government once again. But a lot of people don't know is, of all the illegal immigrants landing on the shores of the English coast every single day. And the government aren't doing anything about it. They're actually bringing these people in, they're allowing them to come in, and they're putting them up in hotels. Now, I hear this because I'm talking to people, real people. Now and again, you get a few people cover it on social media, but the politicians aren't most of them at least. They're not thinking about the welfare of the people. So I thought, the way I look at it, I was saying this to somebody the other day, I need to be aware of what's happening politically, but I also have to not care. And when I say that, I'm not being sort of I don't care kind of thing, but in the sense that I mustn't allow that to affect my mindset, my mind, my life. I need to do what I can do to make sure that my family is in good shape. We've got all the food that we need.
You're not invested. you're not invested emotionally.
Because you put the telly on and you get all this political propaganda, especially in America, where your elections are turned into a big Hollywood show with all these debates and everything and that. And it's happening a little bit over here as well, where they turn the whole politics into yeah. And then all these football players today, the World Cup started just yesterday. All these football players that are kneeling, the Black Lives Matter, and they're not thinking about, well, what about all the young little girls that got raped and things like that. What are we going to do a kneel for White Lives Matter?
Well, Kanye West said that best, and they canceled him. And fear, which is what they're doing, fear and manipulation and confusion is an immunosuppressant. So turn the TV
Yeah,
off.
exactly.
Get your
Yeah,
mind right.
and we
Mind is mind is an embodied process. So look no further than the mirror of exactly, where your mind is at, because it's representative in your body.
yeah, and as I always say, in order for us to take quantum action, we have to really be mindful of what information is going into our minds. So, what are we reading? Who are we hanging out with? What are we watching? What are we listening to? Because and let's think about these things. Is this good, or what emotions is this instilling in me? Because if it's putting fear in me, that's not good. It's lowering our frequency. And as you said, if you lower your frequency, that affects your immune system, gets worse, and then you'll pick up the viruses and this and that, whatever, and then it'll affect your mind, as the mold affected you. Had brain fog. So let's think about these things, because in order to take that quantum leap, you need to be mindful of your environment as well.
I would like to point out, I think Christopher Dawkins coined this phrase, mimetic virus. We're dealing with a brain virus. Again, the battlefield is on the human mind. And mimetic virus, or meme, is any idea that has a value judgment attached to it. And so this is a brain virus, and these are the worst. And we saw that. Just look no further than World War II. People got infected with a brain virus, thinking that Hitler was a good idea, and that Stalin as well. All the totalitarian tiptoe. Mao Zedong. We forget what happened in the 20th century. I think 120 million people were murdered for the greater good. So watch these brain viruses that are getting impregnated to you from the men in white coats, from the people that run and dominate the media. The media is owned, guys. Do you own it? Because I don't own it. I can play in the social media game, but I'm also censored, and the algorithm does not favor me. And I've been on there 17 years. You would think 17 years, thousands of videos, good following. God, I must have millions of subscribers. I'm putting out value that's oxygen and water and organic food. I must have millions of subscribers. Nope. But the person flashing their tits and boobs and that's into hookup culture and all that other stuff and STDs and eating garbage and promoting garbage, boom, they got millions of followers.
Yeah, this is yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, I think what we are moving towards, though, I mean, I'm optimistic for the future, because I see us moving towards a decentralized world and decentralized economy with cryptocurrency, which is starting to gain more and more foothold, even though it's down at the moment, but it's going up again. And also with information, I mean, the fact that we can do this podcast and we're not actually a TV station, but we can do this and put this information out there. It's decentralized information, and so as you decentralize, you're putting power in the hands of the people. And a lot of people, they read the Bible and they say, "Oh, Armageddon, and the world's going to be destroyed, and Jesus is going to come and save us." No, this is the way I look at it. Last time Jesus came, what happened? They killed him. First they tortured him, then they killed him. So I think, because he's a smart guy, before he comes next time, he wants to see a certain level of righteousness on the planet. So, question and challenge to everybody watching and listening is, what can you do to increase your level of righteousness? Because I think when the level of righteousness and the frequency of the planet hits a certain level, and I mean positive up level, that's when things are going to start to go well. And that's how we're going to defeat evil, is by being more righteous ourselves. And how do we do that? It starts with our food, how we move our bodies, because that affects our minds, watching it, what information comes into our brains, doing good things. In order to do good things, you've got to have energy. If you wake up in the morning and you're like all groggy and that, you're not going to be able to go out there and do stuff. You're not going to be able to think the right things to be able to put the information out there. So the world,
You got to have a full cup.
yeah,
You need a full cup.
yeah,
Filleth that cup uppeth.
yeah. You got to, to be able to make an impact on the world, a positive impact. You've got to have energy, and positive energy comes as a result of many things that we've talked about today on this episode of Quantum Action. So, Troy, in closing, tell us what you're working on right now, and where can people find you, and in order to be coached by you, because you can help a lot of people. And those of you that are watching and listening, if you have got that bit extra weight and you need help, Troy can help you. So tell us a bit more about that in closing, Troy.
The best place to connect with me is on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I'm on Rumble as well. Not as much socially, but all my material is over there as well. And so I have thousands of videos online. I update everything daily on Instagram and YouTube. We answer the DMs as well as we comb through as many comment sections as we can. And so always get in touch with me there. My last video is a great way to communicate with me on any social media platform. I have my new book coming out, Brave New Man. Stand and Be Counted or Be Usurped by the Systems is the subtitle. We'll go into common law, trust law, natural law pretty deeply. And I share by example because we can only lead by example and where we're from. So I take you through my own personal philosophy and psychology and process, right? I'm in process. I try not to have any too rigid beliefs. And so that book will be coming out very soon. We have an online program. I teach men's work. I have an online platform, Man Clan. And so go over to my website, certifiedhealthnut.com, troycasey.com, and get on my email list, my newsletter, because I am being censored. You want to be able to stay in contact with me there. And then you can see the various online courses that I have. I have a 12-week breathwork course to reprogram the breathing. I have a stress management course, and I have the Ripped at 50 Deluxe course as well, where I scale the tallest mountain in Sedona at 55 years old, and I take my team and we teach the 9 pillars of health. And these are basic fundamental principles, or in physics they call that first principles. And so hydration, nutrition, sleep, nature, relationships, most importantly is legacy. What is it that the heart desires? So we can take that out of the heart and program the mind. The mind is a tool. Once the mind is programmed, we take the energy back into the body, and mind is an embodied process we keep out of the head because it's an anxiety trap. It's a stress trap. And so program the mind with the heart's desire, and then follow your legacy. Create your dream and your dream team, and support your lifestyle with your values. And so yeah, connect with me on social media and wait for the next book. My Ripped at 50, A Journey to Self-Love, is available on Amazon.com, and you can order hardcovers as well from CHN HQ.
Great. Thank you, Troy, for being on the show. And everybody, if you haven't subscribed to Quantum Action, remember to subscribe, share this podcast with everybody out there to help them take their lives to infinity and beyond. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.